I started this YouTube channel about 3 years ago was to make a review for every single one of the watches in my collection. One of my favorite watches back then was the PAM0661 Carbotech. However, over the years, my feelings for Panerai has changed. Today, I'm going to be re-reviewing my PAM0661 because honestly, the original video that I did for this watch wasn't that great. It was done on an iPhone and it didn't look very good. So I'm going to be redoing it today. However, at the same time, I'm going to be giving you my current feelings on Panerai. At one time, I would have considered myself a Paneristi, but I don't consider myself a Paneristi today. So let's flip the camera and take a look at one of my favorite Panerais, the 661 Carbotech. About 3 years ago, I was sitting in my car and I had a watch on my wrist. It was very early on in my YouTube career. I decided to make a video while I was sitting in my car using my cell phone, and I used the watch that I had on my wrist. That was this watch. It is a PAM0661 Carbotech, and I was really in love with this watch at that time. It was my daily wear. I wore it a lot. And of course, it is made out of Carbotech, so that means it's made out of carbon fiber. It's forged carbon fiber, and basically the entire watch is made out of that material, except for the case back, which is titanium, I believe, and it is PVD coated or DLC coated. That's the only portion of the watch that is not made out of Carbotech, and of course the buckle, which is made out of stainless steel. Now that watch, out of titanium as well, not stainless steel. That watch had a leather strap on it that's very similar to the one that I have on it tonight. I have changed up the straps a few times. This is an aftermarket strap from Sword Straps or Alpha Straps. So if you like this strap, I'll throw a link to their website down below. But this was one of my favorite, if not still my favorite Panerai that I own. I have been sort of pulling away from Panerai over the years. I do give them a pass on large watches, and I explain that in a few different videos, but I'll explain it again here. The original watches from Panerai were this large. They were purpose built. They were built large because they were meant to be used underwater. First off, having a large watch makes it easier to use underwater, number one. Number two, it's visible. It's a really legible watch. That's kind of the point of Panerai. Also, the crown guard, very useful, and you could wind the watch and you never have to worry about your crown being unwound. It's always secure with the crown guard, and you could wind your watch right now if you needed to, and you don't need to unwind the crown. So really a very good option for those who want a manual winding watch. They want a dive watch, but they don't want to have to unwind their crown constantly. So a lot of people complain about the size, but it is a purpose-built watch. Now, this is one of my favorites because it is light. It's made out of Carbotech. It's 44 millimeters, but I love the colors of this watch. It's a black watch with a black dial, but you have rose gold indices and you have sort of warm lume, I would call it a patinaed lume, but it's almost more than that. It's like a brown lume. And then you have rose gold hands, and those have that same lume in them as well. The matte black dial just says Luminor Marina. This is a 1950 case, and then it says Panerai Carbotech right above the 6 o'clock index. The 6, 9, and 12 are printed on, and then you have a date at the 3 o'clock that is color matched. I could do without that, but we all know I always say that, but there you go. You do have a dome sapphire crystal on here, not a ton of AR. I always complain about that with Panerai, but you can see when I turn it on its side, it almost disappears with the black background. It's a matte black. The entire case is matte black. And of course it is made out of carbon fiber, so it kind of disappears really easily. This is one of the few Panerais that has spring bars, and that's because you don't have screws that actually screw into the carbon fiber case. You could actually ruin the case that way, so they use spring bars here. There are bars that protect the spring bars, and that's basically the case for all Panerai, but they are very big and really nice spring bars. Some of the nicest spring bars I've ever seen on any watch. Of course, this is an expensive watch. I think new, this cost around $13,000, $14,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I would imagine it should have very nice spring bars. It's actually a thin watch for a Panerai. It gets the movement, I think it's the 9010, the P9010, 14.2 millimeters thick. It's a 300 meter dive watch. And of course, for a Panerai, that's really not that bad. Usually they are pretty thick. And again, that is just because the nature of the beast, that's what they are. 55.5 millimeters lug to lug, and then of course this is a 45 or 44 millimeter watch, excuse me. Getting that measurement's a little bit hard, but at the case this direction I'm getting 43.4. It's technically, I would say, a 44 millimeter watch. It's a little hard to get that measurement because the crown guard and how big that is. With the crown guard though, you're going to get a very large number of 51 millimeters. Usually they don't wear that large because of the crown guard. It adds a little bit to the case, but it does wear like a 44 or 45 millimeter watch. You have small seconds next to the 9 o'clock, and you have a blue second hand on there. That is also filled with lume. And that, like I mentioned, you have a bunch of information on the case back. This was a limited edition, I think, of 500, and then you have a titanium case back, titanium buckle. That's it, really. I changed the strap. I still have the original strap. I don't think I ever plan on selling this watch. I do plan on selling another Panerai that I own. It's the chronograph, I believe it's the 580. I want to sell that one because I do feel that is a very large watch. It's like 16 or 17 millimeters thick. It's also a 44 millimeter watch. I kind of see where Panerai are going. Panerai have been downsizing as well, but the problem with Panerai right now for me is that if it's not a dive watch, I don't think it should be 44 millimeters. So that's the reason why that chronograph is going back. I don't need a chronograph that is 100 meters water resistance and has a black case. It looks so similar to this watch. This one I find a lot more comfortable on my wrist. That one I find less comfortable. So that's why I'm going to stick with this watch, and I'm going to end up selling that watch. Very quickly, let me throw this on my wrist and we will do a quick lume shot. Today I'm wearing the Bel Canto from Christopher Ward, a pretty amazing watch from a very, relatively small brand still. They're becoming more of an independent brand. I call them a micro independent brand. This is grade 5 titanium, grade 2 titanium bracelet, hour striking watch. Really, really nice watch. I love that watch. I'm very, very excited about it. But this is actually way lighter than that watch, and that watch is a 40 millimeter watch, while this is a 44 millimeter watch. That carbon fiber is really awesome, and it is very, very light. It's a little bit of a loud watch, the 9010. You could hear that. It is pretty loud, but you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, it wears like a Panerai. This is what a Panerai wears like. And it's not a bad thing in my opinion. I think it looks really good. Panerai get a pass from me because I really do love Panerai. I think they make some pretty cool watches. A lot of their historic watches, some of the original dive watches. I was watching a documentary about the 50 Fathoms, and the US Army were considering using Panerai back in the day instead of the 50 Fathoms, but it didn't have a rotating ring, as they called it. Not a bezel, they called it a ring. And that's the reason why they didn't go with the Panerai. Back then, they didn't have the submersible. If they did, they might have gone with Panerai. You don't know, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. It could have been very, very different, but they hadn't invented the rotating ring for the submersible yet, so they didn't have a submersible. I have a 7.5 inch wrist. This is a 44 millimeter watch with the crown guard. It's like a 51 millimeter watch, and you have a 55 lug span, 55 millimeter lug span, but it doesn't actually hang over the sides of my wrist. It almost does. It's on the cusp of doing that. It feels really good on my wrist, and I love the way it looks. I think this is a really good looking watch. Prices on these have fallen You know, these originally were selling for $13,000. When they first came out, they were selling for like $16,000 to $20,000. Then the prices dramatically came down. You can get one of these for around $10,000 and below, probably in that $9,000 to $10,000 range now, maybe even less. For a while, they were holding steady, and you couldn't buy these, and they were pretty, scarce. They still are, but people are just paying less money for them now. Panerai in general are losing a little bit of value overall. They're still pretty collectible. I think people who love Panerai still love watches like this, but there are less people getting interested in Panerai, I think, every day. And that's kind of the reason why. Also, lume on here, pretty good. Panerai have always been good about lume. You do have applied indices here, and then of course some painted on indices, that 12, 9, and 6, and then the hands filled with lume. Let's do a lume shot and then wrap up the video. That original video that I did in my car, waiting for my wife to come out of the grocery store, definitely did not include a lume shot. So I'm glad I'm really doing this video over, because the lume on here is actually very good. The indices very liberally applied with lume. The hands are liberally applied with lume. So Panerai do a very good job with lume on their watches. I've said this in the past. And also you do have lume on the second hand at the 9 o'clock at the small seconds. I love small seconds, and I really love what Panerai do with their small seconds. They do a good job setting up the watch. And obviously, one thing about Panerai, and you cannot say this about many brands out there, you could see a Panerai from across the room on someone's wrist and you'll know exactly what it is. Usually when I'm watching a movie and I see an actor wearing a Panerai, I know it immediately, and usually I could tell which Panerai they're using or have on their wrist. And that's kind of fun and interesting. You can't do that with every brand. If an actor is wearing a watch that looks like a Rolex, it's probably a Rolex, but you can't tell 100% sure that it is a Rolex or what kind of Rolex it is. It's a little bit tougher. Panerai, you definitely can see it and you'll know exactly what it is. And you can see the lume hanging on because it is liberally applied to the dial and of course indices and hands. So tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. What do you think of Panerai and the direction that they're going in, the direction of the market around Panerai, the Paneristi, people who are really big fans of Panerai. I would have considered myself a Paneristi. I probably still do, but I'm moving away from them. I don't think I'll ever buy another Panerai. I will keep the ones that I have. I will sell the ones that I want to sell, but I won't keep buying new Panerai. I haven't bought a new Panerai in a while. I think there might be one coming in soon, but after that, I don't think I'm going to buy another Panerai for a while. But tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. It is super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Please follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is WatchChrisBlog, all one word. I have some links in the description. Those links are to Amazon. If you click those links and buy anything, it helps support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything extra. However, I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.